All right, everyone, we're about 4 minutes past. For the sake of time, we're going to kick things off here. I know we still probably have some folks who are going to be joining us over the next couple minutes. But first and foremost, we're so excited to have you all here. We're very aware how busy everyone is, and so we certainly do appreciate your time and attention. Gil, if you want to go ahead and flip slides here. All right, wonderful. So in terms of what we are going to be covering today, we'll go through a quick round of introductions just so you know who exactly you are hearing from. We'd like to talk a little bit about the current state of marketing specifically within the wealth space. We'll dive into what exactly marketing automation is and, again, what it looks like within our specific space. We'll show you what our marketing solution looks like and how it plays well within the wealth management space. We'll wrap up with some tips, tricks, and best practices and do our very best to leave some time at the end for Q&A. We do have a lot to cover, so you'll notice there is a chat function over on the right-hand panel. Please feel free to type in your questions in that chat feature. We'll do our best to answer as we go. Any that we don't have time to answer, we will do our best to follow up one-off with each of you directly if there are remaining questions. Next slide, Gil. All right, wonderful. So who are you hearing from the Financial Services Salesforce team? My name is Michelle Grimmer. I am the Regional Vice President of our Financial Services team. We focus specifically within the small and medium-sized businesses. My team covers all Central. I am based in Chicago. I've been with Salesforce for about 5 years here. Next to me, you'll see also from Salesforce, Damon Heiner. He is our resident marketing advisor. And next to him is Gil Lantini. Gil is coming to us from IMG. He's incredibly talented when it comes to actually standing up marketing automation, specifically within the financial services space. So we're super excited to have him joining us here on this call as well. Aside from the three of us, each and every one of you on this call actually does have an account executive at Salesforce who is aligned to you. So again, after this presentation, if there are any remaining questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to any of us here or, again, your account executive, who is most likely the person who invited you to this webinar in the first place. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Gil.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for the introduction. And thanks, everybody, for jumping on today. Really happy to have you all. Great turnout, and we're really excited to talk through marketing automation, how we're seeing it in the financial services space. So as Michelle mentioned, if you do have questions as we're talking through today, feel free to add them to the chat. If at the end of the presentation, we're also going to send out those gift cards. I know everybody had been asked what their preference of coffee was, so that's great. We'll make sure to get those out as well. And just general housekeeping. I don't have to tell anybody where the bathrooms are, so that's good. And you're allowed to eat and drink during the presentation. So I think that makes things pretty easy. So really what we're going to talk about is the changing landscape of marketing. We're going to talk a little bit about client expectations and really, relationship building. I know building relationships is very important to all of us. So those are some of the topics we're going to touch on. As Michelle mentioned, we're also going to have Damon go through a demonstration of marketing automation with Pardot. And hopefully you guys will get a lot out of today's presentation. So as we dive in, a little background on me. So again, Gil Lantini, my firm is Integrated Media Group. We are a Salesforce partner as well as a marketing agency. I've been in the marketing space for about 20 years now. And, my background started right around Y2K. So I was in the industry when things were very different. Back then, websites weren't very popular. You were lucky if you had a website. A lot of email was done through AOL, and we remember that, modem and dial-up sound we heard when we logged in. And, really for me, because I've been in this space since then, a lot has changed, and I've been able to witness that firsthand. And really how we're building relationships and how we're doing our outreach and marketing has changed a lot over the last 20 years, especially in the last 5 or 6 years with social media and a lot of the other tools that are there now. So we'll definitely touch upon that as well today. So again, more than happy to answer questions as we go in the chat and share any insider expertise that I have, anything that we're covering throughout today's presentation. So, I touched upon dynamics of relationships and how things have evolved. And, really everybody on the call, most of us in business, relationships are really key to what we do. Building relationships, building trust. I think that there's no industry where that means more than in financial services and wealth management. There's a lot of people are doing similar types of things, and really what sets us apart are the relationships and the trust we build. I think a lot of us have heard the term people buy from those they know, like, and trust. And that really comes down to building relationships and building that solid foundation so that as you're making suggestions and recommendations on your services, people trust that you're the right fit for them and that they're comfortable moving forward. So while relationships have always been important, I think because of changes in dynamics, it's different now. And I think in general, if you look at, in some cases, technology has changed how our relationships are formed. So a lot of things have happened in the tech space over the last 5 or 6 years or more that have really impacted how we engage. But I think if you think more recently, the impact of COVID, right? So we have something that was out of our control that impacted relationships and how we interact. So now, this event, which may have been an in-person event 6 months ago, is now an online event. And I think, as we've adapted to working from home, that's changed the dynamics of how we work with others within our team. And it's also changed how we've interacted in some of the personal relationships that we've built with others. And maybe we're not seeing as many people face to face. And again, working from home it presents challenges for all of us, and it's really impacted, how we work. Just today, I think I locked my family outside because a lot of the calls we've had, over the past few months, there's always something going on in the background, whether it's banter about Fortnite or Minecraft or the dog chasing one of the kids. I think we've all adjusted to that. And again, it was a forced adjustment versus technology adjustments, which have been happening over years. Bottom line is we're making these adjustments, we're making it work, and it's really important to keep up with any of those changes to make an impact on our business. And right here we have a stat showing 70% of the client's journey is completed before they even reach out to an advisor, right? They've already done research, they've already asked around for referrals and references, and they're learning a lot about you before they actually speak with you. The industry is built on those relationships. And again, what we're going to touch upon today is ultimately how to maintain those relationships and strengthen them using some of the current marketing tools. So I touched upon this a little, but if you really think through how those relationships have changed and how the dynamic of marketing has changed, again, I referenced that 20 years ago, if you had a website, you were lucky, and most people didn't contact you through your website. They didn't find you through your website. It was just something that you had, and maybe it made an impact, but probably not. And as we've moved forward the last 15 or 20 years, websites at one point became the place everyone had to be. If you weren't there, it was almost like you weren't in business. And then email started to grow in popularity. And then from email, we went to social. And social obviously is huge right now and has been for the last several years. Search is really popular and a really important thing to make sure that you're present with, so that you're gaining traction and that you're visible. So, we went from having maybe one way to communicate with our clients, which was phone a long time ago. Everyone picked up the phone, to now where it's a very different landscape. And it's almost like we feel like we need to be everywhere, whether it's search, text, email, phone, LinkedIn messages, Facebook messages. Dynamic's very different. And we need to adapt and keep up with that, but it's hard to manage. And I think that's, a big point of today's webinar is it's difficult to maintain those relationships and manage all of these channels. So adapting is important, and making sure that we're present where we need to be, and that we're making the right decisions in each of those channels. So if we think of some of the key pillars that we need to really focus on as we enter this new way of marketing and really make sure we're maintaining those relationships, a lot of firms are struggling to keep up. And this isn't just in financial services or wealth management. This is across the board. This is really with any small business, any verticals or industries. Geography doesn't matter. It really is something that a lot of businesses struggle with. So we think of personalization differentiation, and insights, right? So when we start with personalization, 72% of people are leaving because of poor communication, right? We need to make sure that it doesn't look like we're putting our marketing on autopilot. It is really important, and this is something that we'll repeat throughout today's presentation. Personalization is key. It makes people feel like you actually know about them, that you care about them, and that you really want to get the right information to them at the right time. So personalizing your experience with your clients, with your prospects, very important. But when people do leave their financial advisors, or again, any other business, primarily they're leaving because communication was poor. Talk about differentiation, right? So 46% of millennials are actively evaluating alternative firms and service. Basically, if they look at firms and think they're all the same, they're going to really look for a different avenue, right? So I think something we struggle with in financial services is that if we're very focused on results and returns, which is important, we're not differentiating ourselves from others that are also seeing positive returns. So we really need to find ways to differentiate our firm and make sure that people know we're not all the same and there are different ways that we can help. But again, when people leave, it's primarily because they don't really, maybe see the value in where you're different than others. And then insights. 70% of companies want to make data-driven decisions, but if we don't have that data, or more importantly, if the data is not in one place, it's really difficult to make those decisions. So again, thinking through, if I had data in a lot of different places and that data is siloed, it's really difficult to make high-level decisions on how to grow my company if the data is not in one place. So these are challenges businesses are facing. And again, they're things that we're going to address as we go through today. So when we think of the client expectations, right, we're seeing 86% of marketers are struggling to personalize that journey. So again, we talked about the importance of personalized content, and 86% of marketers are saying that's one of the things that they're struggling with. They're not able to personalize that journey throughout. And on the sales side, 80% of buyers are saying sales reps fail to meet expectations, right? It's about contributing value. It's about differentiation. So the sales role is very different than it was years ago. The sales role now is, again, primarily relationship building. It's really about showing how you're different and why you're different and providing value, and less about just picking up the phone and asking for the sale. I'll pause to see if we have any questions for a minute while we go into how do we adapt. And again, feel free to put questions in the chat and we can try to answer those as we go. And so a question about sharing the slides later. So we will send out all the slides after today's presentation. So you will get a copy of this after, as well as a video. So we are recording this as well. Great question, thank you. So that should have been one of the housekeeping notes instead of the bathroom joke. So thank you for that. All right, so how do we adapt? So marketing automation is really the topic of today's webinar. And again, what Damon will be showing when we get to the demo is Pardot's Salesforce's marketing automation solution, Pardot. And so really having an understanding of what marketing automation is really important, because this is going to help us solve a lot of those problems. So marketing automation is using software to automate marketing activities. So it's not just email, it can be social, it can be nurture campaigns, it can be automating follow-ups and tasks, it can be ad management if you're doing online advertising. So the idea behind bringing in a marketing automation solution is to take the digital channels that you're currently working with and your data that you currently have in your CRM and tie all that together through a piece of software. So a couple of things to note with that is it clearly improves efficiency. So having everything in one place is always going to be more efficient, but it also allows us to create that personalized experience, right? So if we think of tying marketing automation in with our CRM, the CRM is our system of record. So all of us are on Salesforce or some variation of Salesforce for this call, and the data really is there, and it's it's giving us all the information we need, but currently we might not be able to use that information to personalize the experience or to make better decisions on who to reach out to, when to reach out to them, and what to talk to them about. And marketing automation gives us the power to, again, improve the efficiency, but more importantly, personalize the experiences. Going back to one of those early slides, that people want a personalized experience, and that ultimately is what's going to help build those relationships and maintain strong communication. And then marketing automation also gives us the insights that traditional marketing and more sideload tools won't be capable of. So if you think of having your CRM and then you're using, MailChimp to send email, and you're using, Hootsuite to post on social, and you're using other tools for marketing, each one of those tools has some data in it. But not only is that data not related to each other, it's not related back to your prospects that are in your CRM. So the challenge is that even though we might see we had a good open rate on an email newsletter, or we have really high engagement on a social post, that doesn't really mean a lot in terms of how do we move the needle from a sales perspective. So the idea here is that we want to bring all that together and then layer on top of those really important metrics who the people are that are engaging. So now we have a much more complete view of our prospect, and the reporting, the 20% open rate, isn't about just a number. It's about Gil Lantini opening the email and interacting with it and showing buying signs, or Damon Heiner clicking on a social post and interacting with certain content. Those are the things that marketing automation will help us get. So when we look at success in financial services through marketing automation, a couple of metrics that we've pulled here. So marketing automation has shown a 38% increase in prospect engagement. So if we think of sending out a newsletter, newsletters typically are not engaged with, that you might click through and go to the website, but as far as responding or taking other action, those types of emails, what we would consider a batch and blast email, they don't create engagement. Marketing automation shows a 38% increase in engagement, which is really the goal, is to get people more engaged and more interested in what we're sharing. There's a 24% increase in lead conversion, and that goes back to the things we've already talked about. It's a personalized experience, it's timely, it's the who, what, and when, right? So we're able to improve those numbers by automating that process and knowing more about our prospects. And then clients are also seeing a 34% increase in marketing ROI. So for the money that they're spending on these tools and any other sources, whether it's data sources or other technology, we're seeing a 34% increase in the ROI. A couple other stats I wanted to share. So personalized emails generate 6 times higher revenue per email, right? So again, all the data shows us that personalization is key. And if you think in terms of, in general, email marketing has always returned a higher ROI than any other form of digital marketing. That statistic has been relevant for the last 5-6 years now. Email marketing, because of the low cost of entry and the high level of engagement, especially if it's personalized, email marketing will return a higher ROI. And again, a lot of it's because your cost is going to be lower than going out and spending several $1,000s on ad campaigns. But the same holds true here, is that personalizing those emails will return a higher ROI. The other thing about marketing automation, and again, Damon will dive into this more, but this idea of lead scoring. So right now, someone opens your email, and then a month later, do you know that they still opened that email a month ago? Like, how do you reference back using your current technology to what people did in the past? Marketing automation allows us to score every activity. So now what happens is, if I open an email and click on it, that action is scored. I go to your website, that action is scored. I go back to your website a month from now, that's also scored. And I can score different pages that have different values to my business. So a page that has a higher chance of conversion because it's about a specific product or service, I can score that page higher. The idea is that scoring will show how interested a prospect is in your business. The more engaged they are, in theory, the more interested they are. And really the goal is to increase our prospect scores to show high levels of interest so that even if they don't reach out, we can reach out to them. You know, the old days of like dialing for dollars, I call it, where you'd pick up a phone book or you'd go through your CRM and just dial everybody because that's really all the data you had to work with. It's just not necessary anymore. The idea in using tools like marketing automation is that I can leverage the scores in previous engagement to determine how interested people really are, so that when I'm making those outbound calls or doing some personal outreach or inviting people to an event, I know who to invite, I know who to reach out to, and I'm going to use that score as that metric. And then ultimately, recipients are 75% more likely to click on emails from a segmented campaign. So again, batch and blast, which is what a lot of us do. We just put everybody in one list and send one email to everybody. People are more likely to engage with content if we segment those audiences into what people are interested in. And just a few quick triggers here. So these are some of the things that are really involved with notifications and how we can trigger action. So someone goes to your website, interested in product or services, that can be a trigger. Someone downloads specific content on your website, they open or click an email. Those are all triggers. They're things that we can notify our sales team about, and they're also things that are scored. And using scoring, we can maintain a certain threshold to gauge level of interest, again, to notify the sales team, hey, this person has a score of 20, it might be time to reach out. And the last thing I'll touch on, we'll turn it over to Damon here in a minute, is just the idea of lead nurturing. So we talked a lot about automation and technology and how we tie it together. A lot of the way we see success using a tool like Pardot is using this concept of lead nurturing. So whatever that trigger point is, the page visit, the email open, filling out the website form, downloading that content, that action is what puts them in the top of this funnel. Then ultimately what happens is we send an email automatically personalized based on the action they took. And then I can start to segment my audience and kind of split paths at some point based on engagement levels. So I could have a non-engaged path versus an engaged path. The idea being I can send different types of content based on what people are interacting with and if they're interacting at all. And I can start to branch this out and create this decision tree automatically through email marketing tools or in marketing automation. And the intent is that we're either educating or setting the stage for sales, right? So ultimately, we're going to educate our audience with content at the right time that they're interested in, or we're going to get them to engage so that ultimately we can set the stage for our sales team to reach out. That's what I have for now. I'm going to turn it over to Damon. Damon's middle name is actually Pardot. We didn't include that here. He lives and breathes in marketing automation solution here, and he's going to do a great job walking through Pardot demo. So Damon, you can take it over from here.
All right, perfect. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, if you could stop sharing, I'll go ahead and start on my side. All right, let's see if we can get this squared. And then Gil, I'll call on you to make sure we all can see my screen, and then we can jump in and discuss this further.
Yep.
Gil,
You're looking good. Yep, you're good.
All right, perfect. Well, Gil, I appreciate the setup, and my middle name is not Pardot, but some would argue that it is. But what I'll do today is I'll walk through the marketing arm of Salesforce. So the biggest value add I talk about with the marketing arm is that everything lives inside of the same system. So it's providing that bidirectional sync. Anything updated in one is almost instantaneously updated in the other, and vice versa. So it truly does give you that single source of truth for sales, service, marketing, all in one spot as well. So what I'll do, I'll click through a few of these tabs at the top. Should help tell a pretty good narrative of all things marketing and all things automation as well. Feel free to stop me when there are questions. I'm happy to dive a little bit deeper as well. When I think about marketing, I'm thinking about three buckets: who, what, and how. Who are we marketing to? What are we sending them? And finally, how are we getting it to them? So if I think about those three buckets, the story should come together quite nicely. So let's go to my first tab here in terms of prospects. What I'll do here, I'll show a couple different views. I'll show an individual contact record, and I'll also build out a list reflective of that same content. So let's go to our friend Bob. Let's see what Bob is up to today. All right, so this contact record probably looks pretty familiar to you all in terms of what it looks like inside of your instance of Salesforce. Pretty familiar. Name, company name, title, email, all this great information that's important to me from a communication standpoint. A couple things to note here. Gil spoke so eloquently on it earlier in terms of prioritizing who we're following up on. Two things to note. I have a score and I have a grade. A score, direct correlation between activity and engagement of a contact, how engaged they are with my brand, how interested they are in my content. Traditionally, the higher the score, the more engaged they are. Grade, demographic fits. Could be a specific job title, could be an industry, could be a location, something we've determined as the ideal person or persons we actively want to engage with. Of course, no two businesses are the same. We'll provide you out-of-the-box scoring and grading, which can be completely customized to fit your vision and fit your brand. A couple more things to note here. On the right side, I have the engagement history. What this is detailing is all of Bob's activity with our brand. You see here, Bob's on this webinar. He completed that landing page. He visited our website. He filled out a form. He did all these different items that's important to us from a communication standpoint. The reason I detail this is, now I have a reason to call Bob. For example, hey Bob, sorry to register for an upcoming webinar. Love to have a conversation and answer any questions you may have. It's a much more value added and targeted conversation than me calling Bob, hey Bob, happy Thursday, big plans for the weekend. So it really allows for that tailored white glove experience as well. Another item to note here on the engagement history, what this is detailing is all Bob's engagement over a certain period of time. You see here, I have it based off 30 days. I can customize that view. Maybe it's 45 days, maybe it's 90 days, whatever my heart desires in terms of that view as well. We have the different activities, the different campaigns we're running to overall understand the efficacy, as well as the engaged content as well. So here we can see Bob has visited my website 38 times. He's pretty interested in my brand. He completed a landing page, downloaded a white paper, all these different items that's important to me from a communication standpoint. So the reason I detail this is every single person or every single client is on a completely different journey with your brand. This allows for some more, that trail of crumbs to really identify what he's engaging with, what he's personalizing, and and how he's interacting with your brand. So we figured out what Bob's contact record looks like. We're enhancing that with the marketing data. How about we build out a list of people just like Bob who's important to me from a communication standpoint. And Gil will touch on this here momentarily in terms of different use cases, different campaigns that we can run for those wealth advisors marketing to those clients. But let's have some fun. Let's build one. How about a wealth webinar list? What I want to do here is I want to make it a dynamic list. Think of a dynamic list as a living, breathing document. We're going to set a couple rules, a couple criteria. As long as they meet those rules, they're going to be automatically added. Again, pure data-driven marketing. You have all that wonderful data inside of your instance. I'm going to use it for marketing purposes. So let's have some fun. I'm based in Indianapolis, so I'm going to be biased here. How about city is Indianapolis? So we're going to take all that great data and we're going to filter down just by our friends in Indianapolis. Let's take it a step deeper. How about a custom field? Maybe all of our friends in Indianapolis who are interested in maybe my growth portfolio or my growth stocks. We can do that here as well. We talk about lead prioritization. Maybe I'm going to send a special campaign to my most active contacts. About greater than 200 points. So we're going to base it off Indianapolis. People interested in growth, more than 200. What this is reflecting is only based off field records. That's not the entire story. What happens if our friends in Indianapolis haven't opened my email in the last 60 days? Maybe I want to wake up some of those sleepy, out-of-touch contacts, put them back into a funnel, and re-engage appropriately as well. what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and run the rules. This is demo data. This one's not going to be very fun, a couple of zeros, but let me show you a real life example. How about this webinar list here? Total prospects, mailable prospects, and then all of our friends associated with this list. So that's step one. I got to figure out who am I marketing to. Step two, I got to figure out what are we going to send these people. So here is where I'll build out all my great content. I can upload some files. I can say organize with some folders. Do some social media posting, just like Gil talked about, the omni-channel approach. Build out some beautiful landing pages to acquire more information when we're trying to acquire more leads or contacts. All this creative juices will be flowing through that content tab. But if my goal is to build out some beautiful emails, we're going to live in my product email tab here. So with the marketing arm of Salesforce, you have 40 out-of-the-box templates, HTML and text-based, pretty easy to use from a customization standpoint. I think I have a couple built. Let's take a look at them. How about my webinar? See what this one looks like. Oh, there we are. That's a fun bear. I gotta change the image. I don't want that one. I want a birthday. Happy birthday. Maybe we're going to do a birthday campaign for a different use case in terms of communicating as well. I do love oranges, but that's not the one I want. That one's okay. We'll go with that one. What is wealth management? I can say, thanks for attending. I want to personalize this as well. Very easy to use from a creative standpoint. And of course, Gil talked about personalization. So we're going to have that personalization tied in here. It's going to be hi, Damon. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Gil. Hi, Jordan. It's going to have that same look and feel for your brand and personalize on that one-to-one basis. Of course, as a marketer, I love to test my emails, see exactly how it's going to look on my mobile, exactly how it's going to look on my device. I can do that from here. And what I'll show you here is just one way of sending this email. So I want to pick a list of who I'm going to send it to. I think I have my webinar list like that. So now I have 1,830 people I'm going to send this to. But who's it coming from? Is it going to come from maybe the office of the CEO? We can do that here. Maybe it's going to come from, I don't know, maybe our friend Damon. People like to hear from him. We can do that as well. What about the assigned user or the account owner? Very dynamic in terms of sending capabilities. We'll make it come from Damon. Well, after you send that beautiful email, someone's probably going to reply to it. Probably going to reply back to hello at Wealth Webinar. We can do that. Or we can reply back to that same person who sent them that beautiful email, the assigned user or that account owner as well. Very easy to use from a creative standpoint, and the world is your oyster in terms of sending capabilities. All right, let's pause and see if there's any questions.
David, one question, two questions actually that came up. One was about texting, text automation. The other was just about landing pages. So do you want to touch upon that?
Yeah, sure. So I can talk through both of those. Actually, let's have some fun. Let me send this email first so we can talk through the reporting piece. But then I can touch on the landing page. Well, I'll touch on both. So the landing page, absolutely. So all those are living inside of my content tab. A couple ways to look at landing pages. We can either host them on inside of Salesforce, or you can host them on your website. Very easy to use from a creative standpoint. I think I have one built. Let's take a look. Yep, there we are. So this is just one I built. Full transparency. I don't design landing pages for a living, but this one will be helpful in terms of hosting it. I can run automations off of here. So say if after our friend, we'll make it so Damon fills this one out. D. Heiner at Salesforce. And I want to learn more. So here, I can run automations off of this. I can adjust scores. I can create tasks. I can add Damon to a list. Everything we want to do from a creative standpoint will be inside of here. Okay. Thank you for your feedback. I could have a link to a video, a link to another download. All that will be living inside of here. And of course, if I went to Damon's contact record, I would be able to track that behavior as well. For the texting capabilities, I'll show you that here momentarily as well. So in terms of the emails that I just sent, let's go back to that one. So I sent the email, covered a couple things there. We covered who are we marketing to. We covered what we're going to send them, and we figured out how we're going to send it. So I just sent a one-off email, just like we did with that report as well. I told you the power of automation is automations. We're going to automate some of these processes. So I'll show you a different way of sending out emails. So here we're going to automate some of these processes. Gil spoke earlier about the handoff between marketing and sales, or advisors, so to speak. So the handoff between marketing and advisor. What does that look like from a communication standpoint? Oftentimes in this industry, we see a lot of automations built based off drip campaigns. So here, inside of the engagement studio, I'll be able to build out a drip campaign. So let's just make it how about our webinar event campaign? That one sounds good. What I want to do is I want to pick a list. I think I have a list here. Webinar, wealth webinar. I can suggest people, maybe our current clients, Monday through Friday, business hours, that works for me. So here is the creative canvas of how I'm going to build out my engagement campaigns. With every campaign that you run, you have two constants. You have a start and you have an end. Regardless of what you do, those two items are always taking place. Personally, I've been on the edge of my seat the entire webinar up until this point. Based off this campaign, it's not very exciting for me. So what I want to do, I want to have some fun. So I'm going to hit this plus button. It gives me three options: an action, a trigger, and a rule. An action is when I do something. I want to add them to a new list. I want to adjust their score. I want to create a task. Or ultimately, I want to send an email. From there, we're going to listen for activity or engagement. I want to click on a link. I want to open an email. I want to complete a landing page. What are we doing to show their engagement? Last but not least, a rule. A rule is logic-based. If this, then that. We have all that wonderful data inside of our instance. Why don't we use it for more granular campaigns? For example, maybe our person's grade is a B. They go on one journey. If it's less than a B, they go on a completely different journey. Very easy to use from a creative standpoint to really really build out that segmentation as well. All right, so let's have some fun. While I do an action, what I want to do is I want to build an email. See if we have one that would be relevant. I think I have one. There's that bear again. Hello, what is wealth? That's a great image, great personalization, great call to action. That's the one we want. Do I want to send it immediately? Do I want to maybe wait 3 days? Or do I want to schedule it out? We can do that as well. For fun, let's do it immediately. After we send an email, really one of two options can occur. They either open the email or they don't open the email. We give them 3 days to decide. So let's talk through it. We sent that webinar invite. We sent them that beautiful bear email. There he is again. If they open it, they go on a journey to the right. If they don't open it, they go on a journey to the left. Well, this is a pretty important email. Maybe I want to send all our friends a second email. Let's see if we have one that's relevant. I think I might. Let's see if this one. Yeah, that one looks pretty good. Our vision. That's the one. Do I want to wait? I want to wait 2 days. I want to be more strategic here. All right. Let's not forget about our friends on the right. They did such a great job opening that email. They get 10 more points. Such a beautiful email. They get 10 points. Now, we talk about the lead handoff. Because it's such a great email, such a great event, man, I want my team to call them. I want my advisors to call them. I need them to follow up. Hot lead webinar. That's the one. Maybe I want to assign it to Damon so he can call them, or the assigned user in the account. Either one's fine. Let's make Damon busy. Do in one day. It's going to be a high priority, though. This is a very important webinar. So what we're going to do here is we're going to break down those silos between sales and marketing, marketing and sales, and create that seamless experience as well. One thing that you talked about, we had a question from the chat, from the hotline. What happens if these people don't open their email? So maybe I want to send them a text. So here we're going to power that text via Salesforce. Let's see if I have one here. Reminder, get that beautiful email. So we're going to power that text. So it's going to create a text via Salesforce and automate that process as well. Let's pause here. Questions? Any questions from the chat, Gil?
So one question about monitoring sends and bounces. So the question was regarding to Mandrill, but really, Damon, you want to just talk about, like center reputation as well as how Pardot manages bounces?
Yeah, great question. So Salesforce as a whole will proactively monitor your inbox and deliverability placement. If your deliverability or your inbox placement falls below 90%, our team proactively reaches out. We provide best practice, we provide guidance, we provide some substance there to help make sure you're on the right track in terms of you hitting that inbox and you hitting that deliverability piece as well. Of course, if I show you a report, and I'm happy to do so as well, we can monitor which emails are hitting spam. Which emails are bouncing as well. And we can take a look at what that looks like from an email report. Let me show you one here momentarily. Our newsletter. So we have the bounces here to be able to really understand which ones are hitting the inbox, which ones are bouncing as well. I can click in here. Granted, some demo data, it's going to populate some zeros, not very fun. But at the end of the day, you'll be able to see that on the individual send as well.
And one thing too to add, and we run into this a lot. I have one client I've been working with closely on. They're actually looking at all the bounce reasons. So Pardot will let you know why things bounce. In some cases, it could be a block bounce, so the domain's not allowing in emails from a third party. So we can analyze that and move those people into direct one-to-one communications. If it's a bad email address, it removes it automatically. And then in some cases, you'll see soft bounces, which it will retry. So you'll actually get the bounce reasons and then can make decisions on follow-up based on what those bounce reasons look like. And that all comes right from Pardot.
All right. Any other questions before I pass it back to you, Bill?
I think the only other question that I have in here about text automation, which I can touch on. So Pardot will work because it's native to your CRM. The way we usually handle text automation is through integrating text messaging into CRM. So we use Twilio. It's one of the more popular tools for text message automation. There's also SMS 360 and SMS Magic. Essentially, those tools live on the Salesforce platform, and then Pardot can actually trigger those text messages through automation. So while the app does not live directly in Pardot, Pardot can trigger text automation and personalization through a workflow. So absolutely can be accomplished. We work with lots of companies that are doing that. All right. Anything else, Damon?
No, I think I'm okay on my side, but I can stop presenting and hand it back to you.
Sure.
You can take us home.
All right. While you were demoing, my family pressed their face against the glass, and I think they look like puppies. They want to come in, but I told them not yet. So it will be quiet for another 13 minutes. I may not tell them when it's over. I may just leave them up. No, it's terrible. Sorry. All right. So can you guys see my screen again?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Damon, that was your cue. All right. So a couple of best practices I just want to talk through to follow up on what Damon talked about, and then also dive into a couple of use cases that we see really popular and work really well. So Damon talked about personalization on those emails. I touched upon it before as well. The whole idea here is that personalized emails receive more opens, they receive more clicks, and most companies are not personalizing their emails. So first thing here is we need to be personal with everything we're sending out. And we can do that through those variable tags that Damon showed, through the segmentation rules and dynamic lists, which Damon also touched on and showed, which is building audiences based on what we know and then personalizing what we send them when we're putting out email. So super important. Again, this is something that we don't traditionally do with our more native or like third-party email systems, but this is something that, because we have all that data, is very easy to do within the Salesforce Pardot ecosystem. And then the other thing Damon touched upon is content, right? So we like this idea of developing anchor content. So when we talk about downloading a white paper, that one white paper becomes content for a blog, an infographic, a video, a webinar, an email that can be sent out. It gives us website content. So anchor content is one piece of content that can be used in multiple channels. So again, when Damon talks about, following up or downloading a white paper, the white paper serves so many purposes. So even though some of this content takes time to create, the reality is that one piece of content can give us 8 to 10 different channels worth of content and give us a lot to talk about, because a white paper has a lot of information. We need to make that more tangible so we can break it down into smaller pieces. So definitely, really feel strongly about the idea of developing that anchor content that you can work from. All right, so just going to go over some 3 quick examples of where we're seeing success in financial services, different types of campaigns. The first one, things have changed, right? So we used to talk about hosted events, road shows, in-person educational events, cocktail receptions. That's changed right now, which is why Zoom stock has gone up so high. We're hosting events online, and we're doing Google Hangout today. The idea is that hosted event campaigns are very effective. We're seeing the most success here, and I'll talk about this in a minute. Educational series, again, Damon touched upon that educational content and how we can build out those workflows. And then the cold lead nurture, which Damon also mentioned, that unengaged audience, and how do we reach out to them. So I'm going to touch upon the 3 of these. And again, we're going to share the slides out after, so you guys will have this to reference back to. We see the most success right now in financial services with webinar campaigns. So the idea behind a webinar campaign is, first, we're segmenting, right? So what percentage of our audience do we feel like would be interested in the topic that we're presenting on? A certain fund, a certain investment strategy, alternative investments. We look at our database and determine who would be a fit. Maybe it's people that have already expressed interest in the past, or maybe it's people that are more into traditional funds and we should be looking at other ways to expand their portfolio. So first, we start with segmentation. We develop our call to action, so integrating our emails with Google Hangouts, Zoom, GoToMeeting, so have it very easy for people to register. When they were in-person events, then we'd integrate with Eventbrite. So that call to action of sign up for something, this is free, whatever the value proposition is, we want to make sure we develop that call to action, and then develop your content. So if you think of an event, a webinar, usually starting 30 days out with a very light touch. We don't do much heavy marketing 30 days out from an event, but it's almost like the wedding save the date that goes up on the fridge and we tend to forget about it, but it's there. The idea after that is sending personalized emails to talk about why the event's a good fit. So why is what we're sending to people relevant to them? We need to, again, go back to the personalized experience. We need to know why we're sending it to them and let them know we think there's value in what we're sending them. And then sending out at least 3 pre-event emails. But here's the thing, and this is where I see the drop-off very often post-event, right? So a lot of times we do all this promotion and get people to the event, but we don't tell people what they missed by not attending. So I actually find more value in some cases in that post-event content, because like there's obviously, a lot of great audience today. Everyone on this Hangout is going to get the content after. But what about the other people that didn't attend? We want to let them know what they missed, and we want to share some content from today. So the idea is that we're expanding our audience by reaching people after the event, and we're seeing if they're interested. Maybe they just couldn't make the webinar, but they're interested in the content. So we really like to build out that post-event webinar content. Educational workflow. So when we talk about an educational series, and again, this is something Damon and I have both talked about at this point, but putting out thought leadership, putting out content around that white paper, around that anchor content, and making the content relevant to the people that you're sending it to. So the reality is, by understanding what people are interested in from visiting our website and looking at the data we have in our CRM of what products or services people are interested in, again, certain funds, certain lender or investor profiles, we can segment our audience and give them the content that they're most interested in. And what happens is when they don't engage with a piece of content, we resend it with a personal note. So the idea behind some of this content is sending something really visual, really impactful. And for the people that don't open it, send a personal email saying, hey, our team sent this out last week. I thought this might interest you. Hope you have a chance to look at it. So repurposing some of these emails with a personal note and really, doubling down on our open rates. So if 20% of the people open the first email, we're going to take the 80% that didn't, and we're going to resend them a personal message. And if we pick up another 20%, we've now, in essence, doubled our open rate with the same content, but it's not sending the same exact email, so it doesn't look like we're just, not in touch with what we're sending. So again, the idea is to develop your content first, put out some really nice-looking visual emails, and then follow up with personal emails, and you can automate this whole process. And then the third type of campaign we see is really effective, cold lead nurture. So, giving your advisors some leads to work with, people that have not engaged. So building a list of anyone where there's been no advisor activity within 180 days, for example, we can dynamically build that list. And then taking that audience, we can have an email come out from the advisor to reintroduce the brand, following up with a personal introduction, and then continuously checking in over a period of 15, 20, 30 days, where there's a sequence of emails that will go out automatically from the advisor. But again, the idea here is we know these are unengaged leads that we either want to get rid of and kind of clean up our data, or re-engage with personally because we're seeing interest. So again, event-based emails, super effective, really high ROI, really great return on building out those campaigns with webinars now, and again, hopefully with in-person events at some point in the not so distant future. The educational content, educational campaigns, that's the differentiator. That's something that really helps set us apart, and can also take webinar content as part of those campaigns. And then cold lead nurture, let's just find out if people are interested and if we should re-engage. This helps us really manage our data better. There's a couple quick tips before I pass it back over to Michelle to close us out and bring us home here. So mixing various outbound channels. It's not just about email, it's about email and social and anything else that we feel like is a fit for our audience, but making sure we're combining all those and keeping it personal, very important. Content should always be developed with the audience in mind. We need to know what they're interested in, and our content needs to reflect that. I put in here the old 7-touch rule. That's what it was when I was in school. That's probably 77 touches now, because back then there was no, noise from texting or banner ads or, email or, social ads. 7 touches is a lot higher now. The idea is that you need to touch a prospect 10, 15, 20 times before they even recognize you exist. We need to really focus on being consistent. We want to test our messaging, headlines, subjects, calls to action. Don't just think one way is the way to go. Make sure we're analyzing the data and continue to test that. And then look at those key metrics and the high value engagements. Super important. Make sure we're using all the data our system is building over all these engagements, and we're leveraging that information for future marketing. Make sure our sales and marketing teams, our advisors and marketing are aligned so that they know what's going on at all times on both sides, so that there's really a good connection, and we're building a lot of teamwork between sales and marketing. We want to make sure that what marketing is putting out is relevant for our advisors, and that our advisors can really share those results with marketing. And then last, give it time. It's not going to happen right away. You will see some traction pretty quickly. There's no question that some of these campaigns do make an impact right away. But the best advice I can give is give it time, make adjustments, learn from successes and failures, and continue to use the system. If it sits there, obviously it's not going to make an impact. So constantly leveraging tools that you have is super important to ultimately see success. Michelle, do you want to close us out here?
Yeah, absolutely. And Gil, we do have a couple questions still left in the chat. I popped my email address in there. So for Derek, Steve, Stacy, and anyone else who potentially has additional questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll make sure that we respond with those answers for you all. But we wanted to thank everyone who joined here today for your time, your attention, and your questions. We really hope that this was fruitful information for you all. Again, feel free to contact your account executive if you're unsure of who your account executive is. Again, you can feel free to email me directly. I'm more than happy to make sure that we're pointing you in the right direction. If this does seem like something that you are interested in, or if you'd like more information, again, we are happy to make sure that we're pointing you in the right direction. As many of you probably know, July is the end of our fiscal quarter, so pricing can be quite advantageous if the timing is right for you all. But either way, feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to help in any way that we can. And once again, we thank you all very much for your time and attention today.